Welcome to Discovering. Tonight we'll head north of Marquette to the Big Bay area for a look at water monitoring and more in the Yellow Dog Watershed Preserve.
Anybody with any interest in this, any organization or concerned citizens can do this in their own area on their own rivers and streams.
Stick around, it's Monday night and time for Discovering.
The secret streams that flow beneath the cliffs of colored stone. Forest thick and healthy with birch and pine and oak. Surrounded by the greatest lakes this world has ever known. The black bear's awesome presence as he roams the hills and fields. Call of the timber wolf, the loon's lonesome trill. The eagle soaring high above, the trout lies deep and still. These are what I treasure, the only way I measure feelings that I have for this fine land. There is so much to discover when you're a long-time lover of northern Michigan.
Over half of the rivers in the United States are unsuitable for aquatic life. A quarter of them are in fair condition. And of the remaining quarter that are considered to be in good condition, the Yellow Dog River is considered excellent. I spent some time with part of the Yellow Dog Watershed Preserve crew for a look at what's involved in keeping it that way.
Back in 1994, a group of people got together in the Big Bay area and decided that there was some activity that was going to be happening on the Yellow Dog River in terms of some cutting along very close to the river's edge. So we opted to have a meeting with the DNR about how their forest management plan was going to interact with the river. And as a result of that, people got together and we started an organization that became a 501c3 in 1995. We're still at it, and we're out here on the Salmon Trout River because one of the things about our organization is, well, our mission statement is keeping the river in its most natural state. We still respect all the waters in our area. You know, whatever's going on in the area, we're interested so that if there's any impact on those watersheds, whether it's mining, logging, people building things, or somebody's out there dumping trash in the water, or what's going on with the health just because of the climate. We're out here on the river doing some studies. And today we're out here doing a water monitoring, which we take constituents that are in the water, the temperature, the conductance, the pH, and the salinity. And we're going to collect some macroinvertebrates. And it also gives us the health of the river, how healthy the bugs are in the river. And the book I'm holding right here in my hand is a volume that I printed out as a result of a report that I made of the first 3 years of study on the Yellow Dog River when we first started a program. And it tells about 20 specific sites that we used all along the river that were specifically picked out because there were certain effects that were happening along the river that actually made those sites, very unique in being able to tell the story of what was going on with the health of the river. Later on, we expanded that study to include the Salmon Trout River because the oncoming of the mine that's now on the Yellow Dog Plains up on the AAA road. And so this particular site we're at today is the confluence of all of the branches of the Salmon Trout East Branch, which has 4 branches. And we initially had started out with a Great Lakes Indian Fish and Wildlife Commission where we did our initial studies here, and then the United States Geological Survey is here also in this area. Here in this particular spot right here, we have some devices that are put here for the United States Geological Survey, and it's that they partner with us, and the USGS comes out here and they monitor that because we want to know how much this fluctuates and how much water is actually flowing through here. So if there's an event, we can know about what high water is. And there's a tube that runs out here, and that measures the conductance, and that's the ability of the water to conduct electricity. And the low conductance that's in this river right here is less than your drinking water that comes out of your faucet or the drinking water that you buy. That tells you whether there's metal in the water. That comes from if there's some activity upstream that's putting these constituents in the water that are greater than they have been in the past. So we have graphs and charts that show what's going on. But as the Yellow Dog Watershed, we have ownership of nearly 1,400 acres initially last year, and then some folks came along and gave us another 1,000 acres on the Yellow Dog Plains. And all this property is open to visit for recreation And there are certain limitations to camping and what you can do on the property, and it's the silent sports is what we really initiate, to be out there on the land so you can really enjoy the river. Lots of fishing, swimming, and kayaking in the springtime. It's pretty exciting.
So we're at the identification point now of our data collection. We basically have been out in the stream sampling for about half hour to 45 minutes. We do that to keep it consistent at all of our sites. We basically break the bugs down into like 3 different types of categories. So you have your sensitive species, which are going to be like your mayflies, your stoneflies, your water snipes, hellgrammites, and then your somewhat sensitive, which is more like the blackfly larvae, your damselfly, dragonflies, things like that, scuds and sow bugs, and then your tolerant species, which are going to be your aquatic worms, midges, snails, true bugs. We get an overall score at the end, which basically helps us to assess the health of the stream. These guys are called water snipes. They're a very sensitive species. The big guy crawling around here, this is a stonefly. Stoneflies and mayflies are kind of the top species we find in the sensitive category. The stoneflies typically move more like a minnow or a snake, and the mayflies swim more like a dolphin. So this guy here with the 3 tails, that's a mayfly. And the guys with the 2 tails, they look more heavily armored here. This is a stonefly. And these guys, this is a type of caddisfly. It's actually a net spinner, they're called. They're different from the other caddisflies in the fact that they have gills, and they're considered a somewhat sensitive species. An example of the case builders or caddisflies are these guys. So they build their homes out of tiny stones or sticks. Like this one's built out of like woody debris, and that one's built out of tiny cobble or stones. So they're pretty cool. So when we do the bug collection samples, we try to sample as many different diverse habitats as possible, because some of the critters like to live in more silty areas, some underneath the stones and the rocks, some under big boulders, some in woody debris. Like the cranefly larvae love to hang out in the leaf packs because they eat that. That's part of their diet, is the leaves. The more sensitive species that we have, that tells us that this part of the stream is really healthy and good. And we do actually collect 11 of one species until it becomes common, and then we stop collecting them. If it's under 11 in our collection, we consider it rare, and then that helps us determine our overall score. Because most of these things are what the fish in these streams are eating off of. So the more that we find and the more diverse species that we find, the better for the ecosystem. So we actually do the stream monitoring every spring and every fall. So it'll be twice a year that we do this. And we also do a study on lake independence as well in cooperation with the Lake Association. So we're doing transparency, dissolved oxygen, chlorophyll, and phosphorus sampling on lake independence too through MyCore. It's all based on volunteer help. A lot of our volunteers come from NMU, Northern Michigan University, and then just people that have a general interest in the environment and they want to get involved and see what it's all about and come experience the area up here in Big Bay.
I worked with the yellow dog. Originally, I got in touch through NMU and reached out to Rochelle Dale, who got me in touch with Sarah in the stream monitoring program. And then from there, I've been in constant contact with them. Just as recently, I was given the opportunity to lead out crews on the river, which was a great chance to experience Big Bay and the Yellow Dog Preserve while being outside and having a good time. And I've learned a lot.
So I got involved with Yellow Dog Watershed Preserve about 1.5 years ago by going on a backcountry winter ski trip. A bunch of hardy, fun folks to be with, and I thought they'd be a good group to work with, and it was a good cause and beautiful country. I volunteered and got involved with the stream monitoring program and with some of the land monitoring. I'm also a computer programmer, so I've been doing quite a bit of computer work for them. So it's all a lot of fun, and I'm happy for the opportunity to be doing it.
The great thing about this is that Anybody with any interest in this, any organization or concerned citizens can do this in their own area, on their own rivers and streams.
I study chemistry, so it's a bit of a diverse field, and the environment is something I would like to apply my knowledge of chemistry to. And being out here in the rivers and the streams gives me a chance to see the macro scale of the environment and really see how things are living and acting. And while I study chemistry, I can use this in an environmental chemistry sense. What kind of chemicals should be out in the environment and how they're affecting the water and the life from the bottom trophic level of the tiny bugs to big animals.
I got involved with this through Rochelle Dale and Jan Zender. Rochelle is the administrator for the Yellow Dog, and Jan Zender is the vice president. I just had an interest in the environment. I worked with the DNR in Wisconsin before. I went to school for natural resources at Stevens Point, and I got pulled up here because I was looking to transition my life to a more sustainable, environmentally friendly way of living on a regular basis. So I started living off grid and got connected with the Yellow Dog up here, and I kind of fell in love with it and the area and the people, and I get to do what I love where I live, so it's the best of both worlds.
Long term, what we're looking for is if there's any changes, even if they're slight, so we have a status and trends model that we use, and we see how many bugs, what kind of bugs that we're catching, sensitive bugs, that really kind of give the story about the water quality, what's going on with the temperature of the water, what's going on with the constituents that might be in the water that weren't in the water before, that might come from who knows where, whether from road crossing of salts, or whether it comes from some operation from the mine that might come into the watershed through the groundwater and then eventually into the springs. There are over 400 of them that are feeding this particular river right here. That's something that we want to do, and that's our legacy, that we kind of encourage people to follow up on that. We won't be doing this, 20 years. Somebody will be doing it, and hopefully it's our organization will continue to monitor this river long term. And that's why we're doing what we do.
So the way we collect our data, we follow the protocol that MyCorps actually developed, which is the Michigan Clean Water Corporation. And so we do a physical, chemical, and biological assessment. So this would be the biological with the bug study. And then the physical assessment is what is the river morphology looking like, stream habitat, things like that we monitor. That's also observing wildlife in the area, fish in the stream, things like that. And then the chemical analysis is done with our YSI meter. We take pH, dissolved oxygen, specific conductance.
So the YSI meter is part of the chemical analysis of the river, and it consists of 4 probes, each measuring a specific aspect of the river's chemical analysis. The MyCorps collects the pH, the temperature, and the dissolved oxygen, while some of the other characteristics like the conductivity and the total dissolved particles are logged specifically for the Yellow Dog spreadsheets. It's a very sensitive device, and so it must have like a protective metal coating around it when we place it in the river. The time it spends in the water runs through the device, and it picks up on all these specific chemical traits of the river.
So here they're going to do a velocity test with a bobber. So they're going to stand 10 feet apart, 5 feet on either side where we did the stream width measurement. And they're going to do this 3 times, and we take an average, and that gives us the stream flow rate. 1, 2, 3, go. So once we get our average rate in seconds, we divide that by feet. So they're 10 feet apart, so we would take 10 feet divided by our average second reading. 8.11.
We also collect water samples that go to the lab, and we look for all kinds of constituents that might be in the water.
26 feet 5 inches.
And that gives us a really sharp microscopic eye on what's going on with the quality of water. We sample at different spots on the river.
14.
So we have a broader perspective of what the water quality is, all the way from where it comes out of the ground at the springs, all the way to this point here.
So this is an overview of our data collection sheets that we work with. Stream habitat assessment. So here you'll see we get some background information as far as what's happening currently on site. Any storm event conditions noted. Substrate percentage, what we're seeing on the bottom of the river. River morphology, Typical stream cross-section here. Physical appearance, if we're seeing any aquatic plants, bacterial sheens, whether they're oil sheens or natural bacterial sheens, that's good to know. Turbidity, foam present, any trash we're seeing on site. In-stream cover, what's here on the river, undercut banks, overhanging vegetation, deep pools, boulders, aquatic plants, things like that. And then the stream corridor, how far out does the riparian vegetation width go from either side of the river here, so which is greater than 100 feet on both sides. And then the stream side land cover, stream canopy percentage, here it's relatively low, it's pretty open. And then adjacent land use is seen. This is also part of the habitat assessment, potential sources of stream degradation, which we mark on here. Examples would be highway, road, bridge, maintenance, construction, flow regulation, modification. There would be some of that with the beaver dams that are upstream. Recreational tourism activities is relatively low here. Silviculture, forestry, that's pretty moderate to high. Resource extraction, mining, which would be moderate to high due to the Eagle Mine that's nearby. We do a site sketch. This is an overview of the site, what's here, what are we seeing, what's new, notable features. And then this is our stream macroinvertebrate data sheet where we're noting the stream conditions, any wildlife that we're observing, and then what areas did we collect macroinvertebrates, so riffles, cobbles, aquatic plants, runs, stream margins, things like that. And then we do mark our collection start time and our collection finish time. We have our sensitive category, somewhat sensitive group 2, and then our tolerant. So each of these categories will get either a common or a rare score, and then that's what we file in each category, and that determines our amount of points that we get. On this particular site, we scored a good score. We had 41 points, that's within the good range, which is good. We had a pretty high diversity here in the stream. So,
one of the things we cannot fail to mention is the clarity of the water that we have here in the Upper Peninsula. Most all of our streams in the Upper Peninsula are unimpacted. Remediation is most of where the money is spent. Remediating. You don't remediate clear water like this. Once it's damaged, in some places it's damaged for a long period of time, and Mother Nature will come by and will flush it clean. And what we do here is we're in the preservation business, and we ask all the partners, the corporate landowners, the immediate landowners, the private landowners, and people who are visitors and recreationists and people who live in the neighborhood to be mindful of what's going on. If you see something in a river that didn't look like that before, please call either Eagle, which is now the DEQ, or the DNR, and notify them that there's something going on within my river and it was clear before. And that's really important, is the quality of the water. Viewing the water is important.
The Yellow Dog Watershed Preserves Nature School was awarded a $4,000 grant from the State of Michigan Council for Arts and Cultural Affairs to host a 3-day traditional arts gathering along the Yellow Dog River. UP artists were there to share their skills with the students.
Today, the Yellow Dog Watershed Preserve is hosting a traditional arts gathering. We're on the banks of Deer Creek, and the Yellow Dog River is just down the hill. This was made possible by a grant from the Michigan Council for Arts and Cultural Affairs. And we have 8 artists here today. Gordon Gerhardt demonstrating blacksmithing.
Occasionally would, so I'm going to hammer some on the flat surface. It's more just to refine the shape.
Dan Nye is split ash basketry. Sarah Hoyer is tanning hides in a traditional way. Adam Jones is doing traditional fire starting. John Youngworth is drumming down by the creek. Jan Zinder is doing birch bark canoe construction. Roger Leben is here from Lac du Désert, and he's telling about wild rice processing. Sarah Goodman is doing pottery. And then we have a whole troop of volunteers and other folks helping out. The mission of the Yellow Dog Watershed Preserve is ultimately to preserve the watershed in its most pristine condition possible. And I can't remember who said this, but if you want somebody to protect something, then learn to love it or start to love it. And we want these students to come out and learn to love the place where we live, our rivers, our lakes, our beautiful earth here. There's lots of ways to get to that point, and art is one of them. So we're trying to attract students, children, teenagers in different ways because we're all attracted to something different, or we all have something that inspires us. So with all these different artists here, and they're working with natural materials, and most of these people can gather whatever materials they're using from the woods here or from the natural environment right here in our little area. It's a really cool thing, and if we can, if it sparks something for these students, then we've done something I think really, really great. So.
Well, that's it for this week. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you next week right here on Upper Michigan's very own Discovering.